Hello.
Oh, Rose, it's so good to see you. And I know that you've had a great Christmas, and I'm looking forward to New Year's. And this is that crazy week between New Year's and Christmas where some people are going back to work and others are taking the time off. So if you're watching us live, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're watching the replay, remember to put hashtag replay, because we always like to come back and have a conversation. And welcome to the Healing Through Love show. So today we're here. We are a social enterprise whose vision is to shift awareness on domestic and family violence within communities and to support survivors. Our mission is to provide family and domestic violence survivors with a soft place to land by offering advice and services available to them and their families.
Hello, and I hope you had a great Christmas. And as well as the Healing Through Love show, we hold annual Pamper Days for survivors in South Australia. And this is where local businesses come together and they pay it forward by providing their services and their resources for the day to give our survivors a much-deserved day of indulgence. And each week on the Healing Through Love show, we interview experts and survivors who share their personal stories and offer advice to those who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey.
It's true. Now, in a moment, I'm going to introduce our guest for today. And Rose is going to produce the show. So she's going to be back of house and pressing all the buttons and making everything happen. So if you find yourself in a position that you need to go live with a live event, or you need to be running a podcast, then, Rose is the person to have a chat to. She does brilliant work. Your podcast is quite famous now, Rose. Where is it now?
Oh, I think it's at about 11,000th.
That's 11,000th globally, which is pretty amazing, and quite a few followers. So if you're thinking of pointing in that direction, either something like this, a live broadcast, where we could use the Be Live app, or something online, which is now yours is online and it's talking, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's called a vodcast. So I do video, which is on my YouTube channel, and I also on SoundCloud and all the other famous and popular podcast streaming platforms.
It's so good. It's so glad to have you here with the Healing Through Love space, Rose. We love you. So Rose is going to go back of house, but she's going to come back and we're going to have a conversation. So we'll see Rose soon. See you, Rose. Today we've got our very special guest. We've got Matt Caruana. And in January 2016, at the tender age of 16, sorry, Matt, I'm keeping myself together. Matt attempted suicide, and as a result, he ended up as a paraplegic. Now he has turned his life around and is now a mental fitness facilitator. He's going to share with us that story and what it looks like to be a fitness facilitator. And he runs workshop on meaningful connections. Hi, Matt, how are you? And he's not on the screen, but Matt won't be very far away. Rose, is he very far away? There he is. Hi, Matt. How are you? I gave you an introduction, but you weren't in front of me, but that's okay. So, Matt, you now are a mental fitness instructor. Can you tell us, what does that look like? I can't even imagine.
Mental fitness, I like to view similar to physical fitness, where we place so much emphasis on our physical health, to strengthen our bodies. We exercise, we eat well, we drink enough water. Similar to our physical bodies, I believe we have to strengthen our mental fitness. This is through different things. And one thing I'm very big on is meaningful connection and establishing that, because that was the one thing that I didn't have when I was younger.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about meaningful connection.
Meaningful connection, I believe, consists of three things. Firstly, presence, rapport, and then vulnerability. When you have all three of these, you have a very strong foundation for a relationship, whether it's friendship, family, spouses, whatever. And that last one, vulnerability, tends to be the key part that most people miss.
And I'd say of both sexes, but predominantly men, I'd assume, because definitely. Women, we are walking wounds a lot of the time, and our vulnerability is definitely out there for the world to see. So tell me about the presence aspect of the meaningful connection. What does being present look like? How do we get there? What sort of exercises could we do to hold ourselves in a space of being present?
So with me, I've worked quite a lot with high schools. I'm 22 years old, so I've been blessed to have worked with many different young people. And quite often I'm hearing the problem with young people is their parents, they're on their phones, they're constantly doing paperwork, they're constantly busy. They don't want to actually spend time with their child. So when you're, like, as an example, right, presence, if you're with your child, are you physically there with them? I.e., like, your physical presence, you're not, on the phone doing paperwork or whatever. But then mentally, are you mentally present? Are you putting all your attention, focus, and energy onto your child? But lastly, and I think this is the part that most people miss, is emotionally present. The ability to show empathy, understanding, and try to see from their perspective what's really going on.
Okay, that's great. So this could look like maybe blocking time out to spend with the family with no electronic tools, so everyone to leave their phones at home and go for a walk or a picnic. Is that something that it could look like?
Definitely. It's even as simple as when you're with them, be with them. When you go and approach them, be with them. And it sounds so simple, but I mean, Charlene, more, it's pretty easy to tell when someone's not listening to you, right? And let's say you're making yourself vulnerable and the other person's not listening. How are you going to feel as a result?
Yeah, I think we as humans, and I've noticed for the different generations too, because, we didn't grow up with computers. Back in the day, this will make you laugh, Matt, we used to program computers on a card with pencil marks that we used to feed into the machine, and each program was like this thick. So it's a completely different world now. So when we grew up, at my generation, we didn't have computers. We didn't have those constant distractions. And so now we've got a new generation who they just live in a different space. And I think, little tiny things like having like no electronics at the table for dinner, or even just sitting at a table for dinner. We've got some friends that the family sits in front of the television on the couch to eat dinner. And like the dynamics in that family is completely different than a family that sits at the dining room table with no electronics and eats dinner together. So, you're right. It can be as simple as that. Absolutely. So I'd love to dive in deep to the second step that you talked about. So how do you express that and talk about that in your workshops, and how do you help the kids at school with that?
So in terms of meaningful connection, that's not what I help students with. I go about it in a different way with high school students. I tend to go about it in who you're surrounding yourself with, because they're going to influence how you think, feel, and act. And my ultimate intention when I run a workshop at a high school for young people is I want to increase the sense of connection in the room. This would be through different activities, reflections, and exercises that I would run throughout my workshop.
Yeah, proximity is power. We are the average of our 5 closest friends, and it doesn't matter how old you are. That's just the fact. We're the average of their income, their everything. So, yeah, who are we hanging out with? It really determines what's happening. I know in my past I was a bit of a naughty girl, and definitely it was about the proximity that I was hanging out, and I'm not blaming them, but your behaviours seemed to be okay when they were doing the same thing. So
absolutely. And I deeply resonate with that too. I definitely went down a dark path myself when I was younger, based on the people that I was hanging around.
Yeah, it makes all of the difference. Now, and then in your last step, when you're talking about meaningful connection, you're talking about being vulnerable. So how do you bring that conversation up, and how do you address that with both sexes, both girls and boys, and everyone else in between? Because I know there's all sorts of shades of everything now.
Personally, I'm all about not approaching it from a different angle, whether it's male or female, because if we start looking at it as a different conversation, we start creating separation. And so by addressing it as the real conversation, I've found that has worked tremendously. And so with corporates, with high schools, I'm running these activities, these exercises that's allowing people to actually experience some form of vulnerability in the room. Though always, as a result, at the end, you have people like high five each other, hugging, and just feeling quite grateful for the experience.
That's so fantastic. I love meaningful connection. So you deliver this not just one-on-one, but you deliver this in a workshop environment, both in corporate and also for schools?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
excellent. So can you tell me a little bit more about the workshops? Like how long do they last for? Who do you normally serve with them?
So typically my workshops will go for about 2 hours. What I find is the workshop, it's quite an intense experience, though that heaviness has to be there, because without it, we don't actually experience what the vulnerability feels like, and then the breakthrough as a result. And so any longer than that, I find tends to be counterproductive. Though sometimes, schools, corporates, they only have an hour free, but I would say the sweet spot being 2 hours.
That's fantastic. So are you looking at doing these on an online space as well? Everything, being as it is in the world right now?
Absolutely, absolutely. There was many companies actually reaching out to me throughout COVID because they couldn't have any space to do it in person. And the thing was, they found throughout COVID, the meaningful connection was drastically low. Not just meaningful connection, but also like their kids, they were struggling because most people in the corporate world that I was speaking to were parents, and these parents didn't know how to actually support their teens and then also manage their own mental health with all the pressure going on at work. It became overwhelming.
Yeah, it has. It's been a challenge for everybody, really, the working from home, for the parents and for the children and for everyone else in between, and least of all, like the teachers as well, from their perspective and having to upskill and change into this. It's a completely different world we're living in now. And although there's signs that things will change a little bit back, but I just think we've got a new normal now, Matt.
We do.
And we've got to have our feet in both like in person and also online events. And that's not necessarily comfortable for everyone. And we get, Zoom fatigue or screen fatigue. And we still need to find a way to get our messages across without people still having that fatigue. So have you had to transition would you think of transitioning some of the things that you're doing in your 2 hours if you were going to do that more online?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've run these virtual workshops and they've had to obviously have a shift in them. I can't run them like I do in person. There are a lot of activities that need the physical space and physical things to actually facilitate the part of the workshop. So I've been able to adapt it, luckily.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do so I work with people and unpack their intellectual property. So we do a physical activity where we've got like Post-it notes all over your desk, and you have to write on the Post-it notes and stick them together and then put them on the wall. Well, yeah, that's fine. But if you don't have Post-it notes in front of you, how are you going to do that as a group? So we found an application called Mirror, which is it's a whiteboard with a whole bunch of Post-it notes, and it's electronic. So there are lots of things out there that I didn't even know it existed until I asked enough questions. So it's interesting that there are other ways, and people are coming up with new ways every day to do the same thing that we would in person, but do it on an online space. But it's just a fascinating time to be alive, wouldn't you say, Matt?
It is, because we've never experienced anything quite like it. And this whole like virtual space is still somewhat, I believe, new to us. Like we've obviously adapted to it, but it's not our physical norm.
No, and I think, you're talking about that meaningful connection. That also is a proximity thing as well. So it's a physical connection, whether it's touch or whether it's just being in the same room and holding the space for a person. Like, how do we still manage to bring that into an environment where we're now mostly communicating to a little black box?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the thing is, we all need that physical connection in person, I believe. And if we just live our lives indoors, we tend to, like, as bad as it is to say, we tend to feel lonely.
Yeah, I hear you. So we live on a linear park in Adelaide, which is a 30-kilometre park, which is a bike track as well. So like we see people walking up and down all day, and so we recognise them, and so we say hello and chat with them. And what we find is really interesting is those times where we've had the complete lockdown where you're not allowed to leave, even to exercise. You know, there were still people out exercising just quietly. But as soon as it was lifted, like it was like Rundle Mall. So in Adelaide, that is like a very busy place. There was just a gazillion people. And it's just amazing to see, like, as soon as something's taken away from us, like proximity, and then we've given it back, it's like they have a new level of appreciation of proximity. And every man and his dog, literally all the dogs, were on the footpath, walking up and down near the river. So, yeah, I think there's something to be said for things being taken away from us, and we can really feel the difference.
Absolutely.
So, Matt, I'm not going to ask you a personal question. You can say, no, Charlene, I'm not going to answer that. But, you know, how has it been for you now being in a chair? Like, how has that transition for you been?
That is an interesting question. So initially, the transition, given how I got into the chair through attempting suicide, when I woke up 2 weeks after I jumped, I realized, okay, I'm not any different mentally or emotionally. I just physically am a lot more challenged, so to speak. And that, let's say if I was at rock bottom beforehand to try to take my own life, this sort of took me to a place where I was, you know, if I was worthless beforehand, how pathetic am I now? Was the one thought that I just kept on having. And yeah, as much as I can say it's been an opportunity for me, truthfully, at the time, I can't say that it was initially.
It's learning to do life completely differently. And you know, so as a survivor myself of domestic violence, you know, I've had to learn how to regain trust, because that was taken away from me. So I know that's completely different. Yes, and I think people who have survived situations, like you had a situation that got you to this place, and you know, as a survivor, we were in these situations for some of our own reasons as well. But we've walked away with these things that we can either choose to look at them as a challenge, or we can choose to look at them as, you know, our greatest learning opportunity and our reason to move forward and make a difference and an impact for others. So, yeah, like it's about living in a space where life happens for us rather than to us, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Charlene, we literally met 20 minutes ago, and hearing that you are a survivor and you run this show to shift awareness of domestic and family violence, to create a soft place for people to land. What I see there is you're the person that you needed when you were younger. And I think that's the ultimate form of purpose. And we've all faced adversity in our lives. How big it is completely subjective. Though to be the person that we needed early on in our life, honestly, it's something I truly look up to. And yeah, I just want to say I really admire what you do with this show.
Rose and I are the mad couple that put this together, and we really thank you, Matt. We really want to shift awareness. It's still a dirty little secret. It's still not spoken about in families, and we know from our own personal experiences that if it was something that was talked about, just like you talk about having a coffee or going to the doctor, if it was talked about so that people in the family would know, then we would have a different experience. And we want the children moving forward to have a different experience. And when enough other people understand what it really is, that it's not just physical, it's also psychological and financial and spiritual, there's lots of different variations of family and domestic violence, is that, you know, people will be able to call other people out on it, you know. And so, yeah, we're very, very passionate about creating a space that can make a difference. Yeah, I love it, Matt. So, wow. Well, your story touches my heart in a way that I'm really struggling to keep back the tears, Matt, because my beautiful baby boy committed suicide, and unfortunately he was successful. So just having this opportunity to speak to you and see where you are with your life and what transition you've been able to do and how you've been able to move forward and the impact that you can make on other people, it really just it really touches my heart. And I can see why, at, the tender age of 22, why that you're such a sought after speaker, not just because of your story, but where you are in your life and how you've been able to change your perspective on life and be able to language your learning so that you can share it with other people. So really excited about your workshops, and we'd love to know more. And I understand that people can access them from your website, or they can reach out to you from the website. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a little bit more information about, I suppose, when I speak, what I run, when I coach, what I facilitate. But there's also a contact page on there to reach out to me. And yeah, I'm open to conversations all the time.
Excellent. Well, working together starts with that level of meaningful conversation. It starts with a conversation. And, if you belong to a group or a company and you feel that Matt's a great fit to have these conversations about meaningful connection, it really is in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's right up there. So we need to have this level of connection. It makes all of the difference.
I believe we all deeply, deeply need it. And if it's a constant issue that I'm saying, I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure that it's, not as big of an issue.
It's a huge why, Matt. When we're not doing the cast here, I'm a belly dancer, so we dance in aged care facilities, and really interesting, we get to dance in the same place like 3, 4, maybe 5 times a year. So we get to know the residents really well. And when we're dancing, what we notice is the ones that are interactive, the ones that are connected, and you can see because they'll talk to the others. The ones that aren't insular, are like tucked into themselves. They're the ones that will see year in and year out. The ones that shut down and are not connected, you can see they're the ones that are going to pass. And, it's just sad. Yes, and it's how it is. So clearly this level of meaningful connection is about your longevity, whether you're young or whether you're old. It makes all of the difference.
Absolutely. And when we don't have meaningful connection, we seek it through other things, and sometimes they're not good. i.e. drugs, alcohol, gambling, food, whatever, anger, whatever it may be.
Yeah, wanting to have a connection in another way. We still want a connection, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. So it's it would be safer to have a good one. Yeah, I love
Exactly.
it. So I love your 3 key principles, and you honour us by being here today and to share your story. And thank you so much for your level of vulnerability here to tell the audience about how you got from where you were to where you are now and the difference that you make. And, can I personally advocate for Matt? If you're out there and you feel that you need that level of connection, reach out to Matt, and because he also does one-on-one, as also does with workshops as well. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Charlene. It was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Do you have any closing words for this time of the year?
See how many people's faces you can make smile. See how that makes you feel as a result.
I love that. My dear departed father used to beat people and wave when he'd drive down the road, and would look at them and then they'd smile because it's like, well, they must know him, but he didn't know him. And when we would go shopping, he would just wave at people and smile, and his catch cry was always, "Have the best day that you can." And I just, mad as a hatter, my father. Yes, and, what a beautiful thing. He was only doing it so that he could make other people smile and feel that level of connection. So meaningful connection, absolutely. Let's get out there and let's spread that love with everybody. Matt, that's true. I'm going to go see how many people I can have smile today. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt.
Thank you very much, Charlene. And thank you, Rose, as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Rose is going to be jumping back on now as we're finishing off the show. Oh, isn't Matt wonderful?
Oh, my goodness. He's come such a long way in such a short period of time. I mean, really, it's a credit to his resilience and fortitude, I guess.
It is. And lucky I'm wearing waterproof mascara. That's all I
can say. Yes,
so we're excited. This is the very last show of the year. And so next week is our first New Year's presentation. We're a bit excited. The show is going to be continuing, and that's thanks to our amazing sponsors. So Be Live TV, which is the live streaming app. And I've got to say, Rose, what do you think? I reckon it's amazing.
yes, it is amazing. Absolutely. Yep.
It's so easy to
I don't
use.
use anything else. There are several other platforms out there which have, different editing tools, but I go with BeLive because it's 9.9 times out of 10, it's just that reliable. It's amazing.
And I do. And even if you're not techie, so if you're out there and you're not techie and you're thinking, I need a live streaming app, I would strongly suggest BeLive TV. I suggest it to all of my business clients as well. And also thank you to My Time TV. So they're streaming across several different platforms. They support us and allow us to have this show on a weekly basis. So we love them as well. And they've got a heart for what we're doing here, making a difference and helping to raise the frequency of the planet and create education and awareness in and around domestic violence as well. Rose, it's been quite a year. We had a show last week, which was a bit of a review of the entire year. And we were talking like, what was our favourite show? But they're all been amazing. Every single person that's been presented here on the Healing Through Love show have brought their own special brand of amazingness. So they've all been absolutely spectacular. And I don't even think I could do the top 10. They've just been great. And every week I learn something new. And today I'm going to go away and I'm going to make as many people smile as I physically possibly can. And I'm so excited. And we've got our in-person events coming up. So in Adelaide, it'll definitely be May. It will more than likely be the second Saturday of May. It's going to be dependent on the location. So we're still just finalising the location for that. And we've got 25 beautiful exhibitors that are going to be turning up on the day to provide services for women who, are currently going through domestic violence or are out the other side. Just to make them feel good. It's just all about creating that meaningful connection and about paying it forward.
We have a favourite event attendee. The woman, we've not met her since, but she came in and she had no hair.
Oh,
she was so like a frightened little mouse. She was just so quiet and so apprehensive about being there. And the young Charlene went over and gave her asked her for if she wanted a hand massage. And so during that conversation, Charlene was able to find out about her life and her journey. And I would like you to continue that story because it's so touching and it's just so much a part of what we do at the Pamper Days.
Yeah, so we won't say her name because we don't do that here. Yeah, so she was very apprehensive and she sat down, and while I was doing the hand massage, we were talking and, I asked her why she was just standing there staring at our op shop, because we have an op shop where they can take anything they like for free, and they get a little gift bag to actually fill it up with anything they want. Makeup, hair care, everything is there. Clothes, shoes, jewelry, everything is there. And she was just standing there staring at it. And I asked her, why were you just standing there staring? And by this stage, she was feeling comfortable enough to have the conversation. And basically, it's because for 10 years, while she was literally locked into a domestic violence situation, she had no choice of anything, no choice of the food she ate, no choice of how she had her hair, no choice of what she wore, nothing. She had no choice. She just didn't have that ability to make a decision. So she was standing there overwhelmed with choice. She just didn't even know how to begin. And her hair was very, 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 very short, like a crew cut. And that's because he'd kept her head shaved for the 10 years. So, she was going to go over. She did go over to the hairdresser and she had a head massage, and they put a little bit of gel in it and spiked it up. But wow, what an experience. And she's touched our hearts and our lives. And, she's our reason why. She's walked away as a different person, filled with love and hope and laughter. And, we've helped transition that for her.
Yeah, that's you're right. It is our why. This woman is just the reason why we do what we do each Pamper Day, because it's just our way of paying it forward to those vulnerable ladies in our community. And I don't know. And, at Christmas time, we gather up personal items and make gift bags, and we give them to most often to Zara or to Catherine House, for the ladies that have nothing. They leave a domestic violence situation. They have left with absolutely nothing except the clothes on their back. And so this is our way of gifting to them something that is so vital for their well-being. And, we love doing it. And we would really love to keep that going throughout the year, because it's just such a vital service for these women who are left homeless through no fault of their own. And it's just the way that we can help them to get a better start, and do what we can do just to brighten their life, even just for a moment.
It's so true. So just reach out to Rose or myself and we'll point you in the right direction. We collect them together, and then once we've got a bit of a collection, then we put them into bags and then we take them to the people in the front line. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the entire year. And we look forward to seeing you this time next week. And that's bye from now from us.
Happy New Year, everyone. Have a
New Year.
Have a great day, and we'll see you again next year. Bye for now.
Bye for now. You've got this.